when he does put this in a barrel, he's making a weeded bourbon, which I wouldn't.
And he's going to be rich because everybody loves the weeded bourbons.
Weeded bourbons. It's the next Pappy. We're drinking the next pre Pappy.
Welcome back to Whiskey Uncut. I'm your host, Paul, joined by co-host James.
Hey, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Our actual announcement, Two Soul Spirits, is sponsoring Whiskey Uncut now.
Yeah. We're going to be doing some giveaways and a variety of other things. So
we will. And in light of that, all of our Patreon tiers have now been updated to reflect entries to these giveaways. So what we're going to do, and we're going to try this out a couple times first, so it may not continue forever, but we're going to try it out. We think it'll work well, is doing a giveaway every quarter. Every dollar that you spend on our Patreon will get you one entry into the giveaway. And if you go on patreon.com/maltmondays or go to Patreon and just search Whiskey Uncut, it'll pop up. If you are subscribed already, if you're one of our long-term Patreon members, you'll get some bonus entries. And then for anyone who wants to just enter like one time, you can do that. And if you're entered once, you'll get like $1. But if you stay for $1, you'll get one entry. But if you stay subscribed for the 3 months, up to the giveaway, will double your entries. So if you stay subscribed for the full period, you'll get double the entries at the end. So
nice. That's a pretty good deal too. I mean, the least expensive bottle that we currently have on the site is $100, I think.
Correct.
So you're looking at, and I think for this one, we'll either do probably the Finger Lakes Rye. I think that's probably the one I'll lean towards, which is a $100 bottle. So that's a pretty good value for somebody.
Yeah. And right now we have 10 patrons on the Patreon. So you don't quite have a 1 in 10 chance.
But it's solid.
But it's solid. So right now, if you were to sign up at like the $1 thing and get one entry, you would have like a 1 in 100 chance of winning. And, so a 1 in 100 shot for $1 of getting a $100 plus bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, you're already better than all those stupid Pappy lotteries that are like...
Correct.
You have a better chance of being struck by lightning 3 times than winning a bottle of Pappy. So,
right. And if you stay subscribed for 3 months, for $3, you'll have a 6 in 100. Right? Because you'll double your odds. So we're gonna see how it works, and if we get enough interest in it, we might do more than one giveaway. Every quarter we might give away 2 bottles or 3 bottles or something like that. So
just give away my whole business on the podcast, Paul. All of it. Just give away all of the whiskey. It's not Paul's, so he can make whatever rule he wants. No, I'm excited about it though, because I think it's a way, we've been talking for a while about how to integrate Two Souls into here. And we've also been talking at the same time about how do we get people involved and do giveaways and find ways to get people products. And this is a way for us to do both.
It's basically just going to be giving them a promo code to the website so they can go to the website, order the bottle. It'll be 100% discounted. I believe for legal reasons, you will still have to pay shipping. So
yes, yeah, because I don't think we can actually just give it per se, but
yeah, it's not legal for us to just actually give you a bottle of whiskey. So you do still have to purchase it so that you can use a credit card, verify your age, or, whatever the process on the website is. But that being said, it'll be, you're going to have to pay $5 shipping or whatever it is. So
yeah, it won't be very much at all. So it'd still be well worth it. Let's put it that way.
Now, I think we got some whiskey news. So one of our, we're going to talk about distilled spirits in White Dog format. So if you don't know, White Dog is the general term for moonshine and just unaged whiskey.
And my understanding has always been that there's white whiskey, which one of the ones we have today is labeled white whiskey. And then there's White Dog, and then there's moonshine. And my understanding has always been that there's subtle differences between the three. Are you along the same lines, or do you just view them as the same thing?
I view them all as the same thing.
Okay.
Other than that, moonshine isn't necessarily made from a mash bill for whiskey.
Okay.
So,
well, you're wrong. So let me tell you what the right answer is. So here's what I've always heard. Moonshine, technically to be moonshine, has to be illegal.
oh,
So
okay.
it cannot be made on a certified still.
Well, there's a lot of legal moonshine, labeled moonshine on the shelf.
Yeah, and that's a marketing play because
Okay.
there's no TTB definition
Right.
for what moonshine is because it's illegal to make.
Right. So it's not a protected.
Right. But technically speaking, moonshine should be made in an illegal still. And you're right. People make banana shine,
Right.
that's essentially a brandy or whatever.
And I would agree. I would have said that just generally speaking anyway. Like
Yeah.
that what I wouldn't consider White Dog from Buffalo Trace moonshine.
No.
So.
And usually too, moonshine is foolproof. Whereas a lot of the stuff they do from like Buffalo Trace and the White Dogs are usually proof down to 100 or 90 or something
Yeah,
like that.
which I'm sad about this one. But
The other thing, and this is maybe a little bit more technical, is the difference between White Dog and white whiskey. So White Dog, from what I've read, most people use that term when it's a product that is supposed to be going to aging. So it's not made necessarily to be drinking right off the still.
okay.
So maybe it's a little rougher. Maybe it's got a little bit more grain note in it because you want it to hold up to the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there's a specific yeast strain that interacts with the barrel better. White whiskey, like we have from Nelson Greenbrier here today, was made to drink without aging. And so there's a slightly different process that a lot of people will use to make a more refined product that they think is drinkable right off the still without touching oak.
So you think the Nelson Greenbrier is not the same unaged spirit that they're putting into their barrel to age?
I don't think so, no.
Really? Because when I was at the distillery and I asked them, maybe they didn't understand my question.
I mean, maybe for them it is, but I think for some people, the mash bill's the same, but maybe they're a little bit more aggressive or more conservative
Right.
on their cuts.
Well, and
You know what I mean?
that okay, that makes sense. And
Because I would want to be really conservative on my cuts if I'm making a white whiskey, whereas if I'm going
Right.
to stick it in a barrel, maybe I'm a little bit more lenient.
right. And this is proof down to 45.5%. So obviously that's not what they're putting in the barrel.
Right.
So
So it is, whether or not, but realistically, we're talking about the same thing, which is all unaged or very, very lightly aged white spirit, white grain whiskey.
what we have here, we have the Nelson Greenbrier white whiskey. And then we have, is this 2 or 3 different samples?
This is 2 samples from a listener.
From a listener,
We
which
won't give a name
we
for
won't
legality
give a name.
reasons.
although,
We're breaking laws right here on the podcast.
no, we're not, James, because here's the thing. These are perfumes.
These are essential oils. Essential oils made from grain mash bills. So this is fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
So, and this is what I wanted to talk about with this is the legality of distilling at home, right? So there's some fine points to be discussed here, which is that it's not legal.
That's a very
Except-
fine point.
And it's not legal to even own a still if you don't have a distillation permit. Now there's 2 distillation permits you can get. You can get like a fuel oil distillation permit, which basically allows you to distill ethanol for fuel purposes, or you can get a consumption distillation permit, which is what distilleries have, like Jack Daniels, et cetera, right? So it's 2 different permits that you can get. The distillation for consumption permit is incredibly difficult to get, obviously, because there's a lot of risks involved with distillation. From the production side, there's a lot of danger in the distillation process because you've got concentrated, highly flammable product in a confined, pressurized space.
Meaning it's explosive.
Right. So it's a bomb.
You are heating up a bomb.
Yeah. And then it's a safety concern on the consumption side.
Now, see, this is already a little bit different than what I've heard, because I've heard that you can own a still because people make essential oils.
Well,
using
so
stills all the time.
I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
right.
So there's a caveat.
Yeah. So there's a caveat here. And that's why I said it's legal technically, but not really.
Okay.
So anyway, it's very similar to the way the government treats firearms, right? So if you have any part of a firearm that is capable of being fired, it is considered a firearm, right? So if you have like the top half of a pistol and it's literally just the striker mechanism that would hit the bullet and make it fire, that is considered a firearm, even if you don't have a trigger attached to it, right? Okay. So the way they define a still is essentially the same way. Any component of a still can be considered illegal to own if it's used for the purpose of distilling something for consumption.
Okay.
Right. So now if you're distilling perfume or essential oils, now you're allowed to do it. And so that's where it gets tricky.
And you can buy I think it's hilarious because you can go on websites and you can buy like a still with a thumper and like all this shit to make essential oils. As far as I know, you don't need a thumper to make essential oils, but it's really interesting that obviously everybody knows what you're doing. To me, it's very similar to magic mushrooms.
Hey, some people are out there distilling perfume and essential oils.
I'm sure. But with the whole you know the rules with the mushroom stuff, right?
No.
So if you're doing shrooms, you can order the spores. The spores are not illegal.
Okay.
It's just illegal to grow the spores. So you can order the spores just like you can order a still, right? But you just can't grow the shrooms. Right. You can't make the whiskey, which is also absurd.
Yeah. And I will say, and so along that line, if you go to purchase a still online, a lot of still producers will not sell you one unless you can provide proof of having distillation records, right? Of a license, because they don't want, if it were to come out the ATF were to find that you're distilling and selling, your moonshine, and then they track that still back to them, they could get in trouble for selling you the still, right? But you will find very small stills or components of small stills advertised for other purposes, and like distilling essential oils, or here's a length of coiled copper pipe.
Do what you want with
copper tubing. Do whatever you want with it.
I wonder what this would be good for.
Which is very similar to in Florida, brass knuckles are illegal, right? But you can buy paperweights.
They're illegal.
Illegal.
Brass knuckles are illegal.
Yeah, but you can buy paperweights that are in the shape of brass knuckles.
Jeez. So you're telling me, all right, let's take this a step back. So in Florida, there's no carry and conceal permit necessary anymore. So you can literally walk around with any type of firearm you want strapped to any part of your body, and you're perfectly fine. But if you have a pair of brass knuckles on, you're breaking the law.
Well, you can carry it if you have a concealed carry license.
But you don't even need a concealed carry for a gun
now. But so I'm saying, okay, but that doesn't take place till July 1st.
But prior to that, so I wonder if brass knuckles falls under that category.
Right,
now.
but prior to that, right? Yeah. But you could carry them if you have it, if you say it's a paperweight, right? And same thing with there's a lot of illegal stuff that gets sold that way, right? So, when weed was still illegal, totally illegal, it would be you could still go buy a piece at your local glass shop, and it would be oh, it's for smoking herbs.
I'm gonna go do some tobacco
out of this little bowl,
of this water bong. I really like how tobacco tastes in a water bong.
Yeah. So
anyway, it's all kind of funny that there's all these loopholes, but I mean the bottom, and of course, and I think sometimes too that's the reason they sell it in parts, right? Because then the legality goes away. Well, I didn't sell them a whole still. I just sold them a part of a still. The best thing is if you find your still in a river, then you can just put it together in your backyard and nobody knows.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the general gist of the legality involved. And so if you're interested in distilling at home legally, I would recommend you do not distill above 20% ABV, because the general use of oils and stuff like that is around 20 to 30%. So once you get above that 30% mark, you start putting yourself at risk of hey, even though you're calling this essential oils, it's probably not. I would recommend you limit who you share that knowledge with.
Don't spread the word.
And certainly don't try and sell it. Like,
yeah, it's probably not good.
Yeah. So we have two things from one of our listeners here.
Yeah. So
he gave us a little bit of information about them.
Yeah. The first one is what would be a bourbon mash bill. Okay. You can't call it bourbon. It hasn't been aged at all in oak. So
I think this smells good, to be honest.
It actually smells pretty damn good. It smells good.
It smells like straight up movie butter popcorn.
Yeah.
Like,
you're right.
Holy.
Mixed with bananas.
Yeah.
Like if you crunched butter popcorn into bananas. But as far as we can tell, so he sent us the recipes. This is about 66% corn, and it's split between white corn and yellow corn.
Okay.
And then there's a little less than 20% wheat, with the remainder being spelt.
Spelt.
I like that word, spelt. And to me, spelt's interesting because you don't see it too many times in mash bills, but when you do, it adds kind of a creaminess to it, both in the nose and the palate. And I get a little bit of that here. I will say he listens to this podcast. I'm not going to say his name, but I will tell him right now, person to person, I thought this was going to be disgusting. I was really scared when I opened these bottles, but when I tried it, I was like, you know what? It's pretty solid. Like, I think this would turn into a pretty good bourbon.
That's actually good. Like, okay.
I was shocked, but it is.
Because he sent me a message, a private message, and he was like, hey, I've got something for you to try on the show. And I'm thinking like, oh, sweet. Like he hooked up a bottle of Stag or, something crazy, like, and then you texted me and you're like, so I got something from one of our listeners, kind of suspicious. And I was not sold on the idea of trying this. One, for safety reasons, because even when I find like an old bottle of dusty liquor somewhere, I'm still hesitant. I'm like, I don't really know where this has been. But this smells amazing.
And if you're into whiskey, which, you've been in this for a while too, almost everybody that ever made anything that I was around always wants me to try it. Mm-hmm. And I've tried some really terrible shit over the years, like really bad. I felt like I was going to go blind stuff. And so when people tell me, hey, like I had some stuff I made, I'm like, ugh, like I immediately start to cringe. And you can tell, for those of you, if you ever have anything that somebody gives you and you want to try, right off the nose, you can tell whether or not it's going to be problematic. Yeah. Like if you smell any sign of nail polish remover, close the jar and walk away. Yeah. Like, because it really comes down to, it's not just the mash bill, it's not just the heating and everything. It's their ability to take the heads out of the cut, because you don't want to be drinking like homemade methyl alcohol. Yeah. Like, so I didn't pick that up here at all. The nose was very banana-y, like you said, kind of buttery popcorn. I thought it smelled and tasted actually, honestly, really good.
Yeah, I'm baffled because
so am I.
Because this is actually better than some of the new make I've had from real distilleries.
Yeah. And I thought it would be fun to try it next to the Nelson Greenbrier.
Yeah.
So we can try it side by side.
So this first one we tried is PBR 124. So I'm guessing 124 is the proof.
It's 124 proof. Yeah.
Dude, that is smooth. For 124 proof.
Like, yeah. And I don't know I don't think he added anything to it. My guess is this was right off the proof or right off the still. This is what it was.
Man.
And I wrote him and told him that we were going to be doing this podcast. And he said that he's making another batch of this now that he's putting in oak. So he's going to try aging it.
I hope he gets a at least medium size oak barrel.
And that's one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to write him and say, look, you need to get at least 20.
Yeah.
In my opinion, but
and here's the thing though, if I don't know what his production capacity is.
I think it's 5 gallons.
5 gallons. Okay. What I would recommend that he do is, because I think we could hook him up with this. Is we could get a recently emptied barrel for him.
I wonder if there's a company that might have some recently emptied barrels around.
Yeah. And I think we might know one.
Yeah, I probably got a couple around.
So I think we could get one that's been recently emptied, and so it hasn't dried out completely. We could get that hooked up for him, and then he could even proof it down prior to entry to fill up some of the volume with water, which is what we would probably recommend anyway.
I would probably put it down to at least 110, maybe 105.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the stuff that we're buying now through Two Souls, a lot of craft distilleries are proofing it all the way down to 100 before they put it in the barrel.
And I think that would work really well in this case because the thing that you always run into with trying to age your own spirit at home is usually the small barrels that they sell for that purpose are not great quality oak. The char is suspect, and the size of the barrel is so small that the basically you're just sticking oak chips in there, you know, in barrel format. Like it looks like a barrel, but there's no breathing of the barrel as the wood expands and contracts. It's just wood flavor, right? If we were to get him a barrel that's been used once, it would tame down some of that oakiness. And
that's what I would want.
Right? Yeah. It would have a little bit of whatever spirit was already in it, you know, whether that's bourbon or rye or whatever. And so it would kind of inject a little bit of that initial flavor in there. I think it could work really well.
Yeah, I need to get some more details from him because, you know, when you make stuff at home, you're not using some proprietary like yeast strain, right? You're probably using baker's yeast, or you're going to a brewery or like a beer supply place and buying some beer yeast or something. So I'd like to see kind of what he used for this and what his consistency is, but I like it. And honestly, if you tried next to the Nelson, did you just try the Nelson?
No, I need to. I'm just drinking his. Like, it's actually good
on it,
dude.
I actually like it better than the Nelsons. And I didn't think that would be the case. Maybe part of it's the proof, but
okay. So the Nelsons is only 90 proof.
Yeah.
So
the nose is kind of similar though. It has that same buttery popcorn, like banana nose.
I think the Nelson's nose is a lot grainier to me though. I get more like grass, hay kind of aroma on.
Well, you definitely get it on the palate. There's a lot of hay on the palate, and almost like an oatmeal note.
Oh yeah,
like if you've ever just like chewed raw oatmeal, it's got kind of that flaky grain note.
Yeah, which actually, you know, I think this is very similar to whatever they're putting in their barrel for their normal bourbon.
It probably is.
Sorry, bourbon, Tennessee whiskey.
I think they probably just take more precise cuts when they're making it for this.
But honestly, his is better.
Yeah, it tastes better. Like straight up, I would probably, if you gave him to me blind, I would pick his.
Yeah, that's like
I'm
there's a lot more
stunned.
I am too.
Like, I don't even know what to say.
I mean, if I had bet money on how this episode was going to go, because when we were talking about topics for this episode, right, I was like, well, man, I guess we have to do an episode about what he sent us.
Yeah.
You know, like, I really don't want to drink it. What are we going to say about it? I feel bad to just shit all over this product.
I had to talk you down a little bit. I know that you'll be fine.
That one of our listeners sent us, but honestly, it is totally drinkable and it's better than the Nelsons. So I'm going to dump out the Nelsons actually. And
that's a pretty good mash bill, right? You're getting close to that 70% corn range, which I think is about where you want it to be. And this is a wheated bourbon recipe too.
Yeah.
So when he does put this in a barrel, he's making a wheated bourbon, which I wouldn't.
And he's going to be rich because, you know, everybody loves the wheated bourbons.
Wheated bourbons. It's the next Pappy. We're drinking the next pre Pappy.
Dude, it's true.
So this next one,
GWR.
This is a replica of the George Washington rye recipe.
I don't know what that means.
So George Washington was famous for making rye whiskey.
Oh, okay. Literally George Washington.
Yes, it's literally George Washington's rye. And there's a couple companies that have come out and reproduced that mash bill that he used to make his rye whiskey. And of course, it was published and put out there. And so now there's a bunch of people that are trying to do that recipe.
And I got to say, the mason jar is not the best pouring vessel.
You just got to get used to getting it everywhere.
Because I just poured like an ounce and a half of moonshine all over my lap.
And so this one here, this is the George recipe, or the George Washington recipe. And this is 6 pounds rye. Now this equals 10 pounds of product into a 5-gallon. So it's nice because it makes it easy for me to do math.
That's a pretty good conversion though.
Yeah.
If he's using 10 pounds of grain to get 5 gallons.
In a 5-gallon jug for fermentation.
That's pretty good.
I doubt his yield's 5 gallons. I bet his yield's probably like 2.5, but it's probably a 5-gallon still.
5 gallon. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I was going to say there's at 60% alcohol, I can't imagine he's yielding 5 gallons.
No, he's probably mashing 5 gallons.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this is 6 pounds rye, and so 60% rye, 35% yellow corn, and then 5% malted barley. And I want to say, as a caveat, I have tried multiple George Washington rye recipes, and I have hated every single one of them. And so that's my disclaimer before we try this.
Well, maybe there's a reason why George Washington rye whiskey did not catch on.
The man had wood teeth. Like maybe this is why. But I've never tried, like, honestly. And there's been people who have aged it and released it. And I remember when it first hit, they were charging like an obscene amount of money for a bottle. My friend traveled to, what the hell is the name of his estate? Mount Vernon, right?
Yeah, Mount Vernon.
Traveled to Mount Vernon, got a freaking bottle of it and brought it back. And I was like, yeah, this is like $300 garbage. Like, you traveled there for nothing. And he agreed. It wasn't very good.
So here's my question, my ponderance.
Your ponderance.
My ponderance, James. If you have wooden teeth,
this is going to be, that's a great start to a ponderance.
when you drink your whiskey, is it aging on the way?
It is, yeah.
The longer you let it sit in your mouth, you're aging the whiskey.
It starts out as White Dog, but it's bourbon by the time it hits the back of your palate.
My second ponderance is if your wooden teeth can be removed, because like I don't know how they were doing dentures back then. Like, I don't know if his wooden teeth were like permanently installed or if they were like he could take them in and out. But you could, because here's my thing. I'm just realizing I'm gonna be old one day and I might not have teeth.
And you want some wooden teeth?
I want some wooden teeth that at night I can soak in bourbon, and then the next day I put it in. And then I get to taste bourbon all day. Well, that'd be incredible.
We'll put a char 4 on your wooden teeth, and then you can put it into new make. And when you wake up in the morning, it's bourbon.
Dude, we could sell that on our Patreon.
Char 4 dentures.
Char 4 dentures as merch.
That'd be great.
We have got to be the first people to ever think of that idea.
I guarantee nobody's ever thought of that. No, we can throw in some toasted if you like it sweet. Yeah. We can do some stuff with it.
Because I mean, pretty much every whiskey-related merchandise product under the sun has been thought of at this point, but there is no way we are not the first people to come up with dentures.
I know, with char 4 for whiskey aging. No, you could just like swish it around and get a little flavor out of there. But yeah, so that's my, how the hell did that happen? But that's my disclaimer with the George Washington rye is I've never tried one that I liked. And so if I don't like this, and I haven't really tried this one yet, if I don't like it, it's not because anything he did necessarily. I'm just not a fan of this mash bill.
Okay. This one's interesting to me because on the aroma, this one smells way less like whiskey to me. This gives me like grappa kind of.
You're right. It has kind of that grapey vine.
Oh yeah,
note to it.
If you poured this for me blind, I would 100% think this was grappa, like a barrel aged grappa, or something where it's like not. It's a tweak on the grappa recipe because.
Or like a brandy of some sort.
Yeah, because the aroma has this really clean but slightly grapey spice to it. And then the flavor is a little like earthy, like, I don't know. I definitely like the first one a lot more.
I do too. And, this is an interesting mash bill too. It's relatively low rye, which was the traditional way of making rye whiskey. We're used to 95.5 and 100% rye now, but back in the day, a lot of them were a lot lower rye profile and sweeter whiskey. And so I think that's what you're getting here is a little bit of a sweeter whiskey.
But I mean, you get this little bit of like peanut kind of like like toasted note on the back end of it. I don't know. I kind of like it still.
Okay.
it's not as sweet as the first one. And I think the sweetness of the butter popcorn, like peanut butter flavor on the first one, really makes it stand out.
I'm surprised that you like this because do you know what I'm getting on it?
What?
Coconut.
You think it tastes like coconut?
I get a little bit of coconut on the aftertaste. It's like a burnt, kind of like roasted coconut. Like if you charred coconut. This to me,
maybe I've never had burnt coconut before. Maybe that's the secret to me liking coconut is it needs to be burnt.
It needs to be burnt to shit, and then you'll like it. To me, this tastes like he slightly burnt the mash in the still.
Oh,
it's a little.
It does smell kind of burnt.
There's a char to it, almost like getting back. I guess popcorn.
I did say burnt, but
yeah, getting back to your popcorn, kind of like if you burn popcorn, it kind of has that note to it. So I'm going to ask him. I think the overall flavor profile, though, is solid.
Yeah, it is.
But that burnt note, I wonder if he... And rye is tough, right? Because rye is really viscous. And so you got to be careful when you're distilling rye whiskey. And it tastes like he burned it in the still a little bit. And you're getting some of that like smoky, char, burnt grain note into the distillate.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because it does. It gives me that burnt popcorn... but not like the buttery side of it. It's just
on
just
the finish.
burn.
That's what lingers. You get that kind of, and it's not peat smoke or it's not like Texas smoke. It's like it's a burnt note. But I wonder what that would actually do if you aged it. I wonder if it would. My guess is that would mellow out pretty considerably. But I also want to try. He only gave us one jar of this one, so I'm going to have to ask him for some future samples and see if that note sticks. So if it's actually just what's coming out in his mash bill, or if it's actually maybe a little bit of a
that'd be interesting.